Ireland. Tis the Final Word, Season 18, Episode 3, Odin Mortgage and Tax, Jeff. For expats like you and me, talk about people being in your corner. This is exactly what Odin are doing when it comes to making sure that you have your ducks in a row with like the mortgage that you had in the country that you used to live in, Australia, which you might return to one day, but you don't really know what's going on. How are you going to make it all line up? That's them. You need to pay tax in 2 countries, or at least file a tax return in 2 countries.
File returns.
You're earning money.
Some countries have a tax treaty with Australia. Some don't. You need to figure this out. Maybe somebody's just randomly applied 52% tariffs on all of the goods that you're exporting from one country to another. There are ways in which it's confusing. International finance is confusing. I don't know how it works. I don't know what the stock market means. I don't know what a mortgage is. I don't get any of this stuff.
You know how I've said to you before, Jeff, that I'm never quite good when the clocks change. I don't quite know what it means for where I am relative to you. The same applies with foreign exchange. I never really know for sure whether the exchange rate going up or down is good for me or bad for me. I need that to be explained to me, often by you. And this is where Odin don't literally do your exchange rates for you, or I'm sure they would. They do look after your tax. $300 for a consultation is money extremely well spent, I would suggest. Having in the past found myself sweating bullets for thinking I'd stuffed things up. I'm sure Odin never would have let it get to that stage. And so it goes with mortgage piece as well, where they do a free consultation off the top. It might be most relevant out of everyone, although I see all sorts of benefits for those who are just about to go back to Australia. Often people come here on those mobility visas for 2 or 3 years, or they get sponsored for a few years, or they want to have kids or take their children back home to be educated in Australia. That's when you want someone working with you on this and making sure you're absolutely lined up perfectly. 2,000 people across 40 countries have worked with Odin. The link is in the show notes to our page there, and you can find them and you can tell them that we sent you. How's that sound?
Let's get on with our show. And we have to come to the news of knighthoods. This is never a topic I enjoy. There's something that just irritates my egalitarian values so profoundly. Sir James Anderson, no argument with James Anderson. Wonderful player, deserves some accolades. Knighthoods for anybody, pointless. Knighthoods for athletes, what are you doing? Sir Elton John, Sir Mick Jagger, like come off it. What is the UK is a failed state, and there is no greater evidence of the fact that the UK is a failed state than the honours system, than chucking people in the House of Lords, than handing out these party favours. Oh, you get a special title, and now everybody has to refer to you as that from now on. It's so backwards. It's so medieval. It's so feudal. It's such a hangover. Get rid of it. Move on into the modern future of the world with the rest of it. People are people. None of them deserve any special bowing and scraping. It's offensive. It's garbage. It's pointless. I hate it. I hate knighthoods. That's it. I've said my piece.
I hate life peerages more. That's more egregious than knighthoods, where you can simply plonk anyone who is part of your world as a leaving prime minister into the legislature for life. It's just
for life. And they get paid to show up, and they get like free lunches and stuff.
It's like,
and they just show up and dip their card and get their 400 quid or whatever it is.
I think it's 200, I think it's 250 quid or something for just rocking up. Now, I'm not against an upper house, but at least pretend that there's going to be some reform there, which is not. There never really is. The Blair reforms were a long time ago now.
It's undemocratic and it should be abolished. You should get rid of the entire structure. But the fact that it's become so politicized, and I suppose it always was, but you've got leaving prime ministers just chucking in anybody they worked with. Oh, yeah, you were on my comms team. You were my media advisor. You were whatever. And then, okay, you get this golden handshake for the rest of your life. It's absolutely disgusting. Like, imagine doing that. Imagine, you leave politics in 2013 and they're like, oh, you're in the Senate for life.
Yeah.
Because you advised Wayne Swan.
Yeah,
like,
I would have insane. It would have been terrific, but or in one case that's never been substantiated, maybe you're the child of a departing prime minister who's rewarding you with a spot in the Lords, which, it's interesting going through the list of cricketing knights. I mean, there's one from Australia, of course. Bradman was knighted when he retired. I remember in that Warnie doco at the very end, where the whole final couple of minutes is Warnie saying that he wanted a knighthood. So, of course, that didn't happen. It could happen posthumously, but it couldn't really happen because he, of course, is not from a country that does knighthoods, despite the fact that Tony Abbott brought it back for about 2 years, one of wrinkles of the last 10 years in Australian politics. But there are 15 from the UK with Anderson. Some names that we know of course, your sort of Warners and your Hobbs and your Huttons and Cowdrey, Bedser, Botham, Cook, Boycott, Strauss and Anderson. Quite a few in the last... so you look at, there was no one knighted between 1996, which was Alec Bedser, and 2007, which was Botham. And then from 19 to 25, there have been 4 in 6 years. So Cook when he retired, Boycott in that same round, Strauss in 19 as well, by the looks of things. And then, of course, Anderson last week. But there's some other ones too, which I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So there was a secretary of MCC but for 28 years between 1898 and 1926. Sir Francis Eden Lacey was knighted in 1926, the first ever person knighted for services to cricket or any sport. Shrimp, Levison Gower, who we've talked about quite a bit, services to cricket. People who were important to cricket, but I guess administration as well, like Plum Warner
right.
and Gubby Allen.
And that's the Warner side of things, and that's political, right? That's being a posh Tory for 60 years, and so you get your knighthood. But they've become much more like they throw in these popularity contest ones these days with the musicians or actors or athletes, where James Anderson's done a lot being a cricketer, but it's not like he's been supporting the administration and outreach of cricket. He's just been playing Test cricket for 20 years, which is impressive, but does it mean you... But then he deserves it more than any of these political flunkies who just did a job for 2 years while someone was in Parliament. Yeah,
it's less likely that lot get knighted. So I think 5 of the 6 knighthoods, or was it 4 of the 6 knighthoods, were former cabinet colleagues of Rishi Sunak as well, which stands out. Like James Cleverly being knighted is just absolutely comical. He's the most egregious of the lot. He nearly became opposition leader earlier this year, which is just bewildering. Anyway, so there's 1 in New Zealand, that was Richard Hadley, and 13 in the Caribbean, where it's still a
custom. They do their own thing, though.
Still a custom that's used. So, yeah, if you're interested.
Antigua has a bunch.
Neville Cardis has got a knighthood as well for services to cricket and music journalism. And he's the only of the 15 in England who didn't play first-class cricket. So anyway, there you go. Right. There's the James Anderson knighthood news that came through the other day, which was quite expected. Anderson did have an existing, I guess, relationship to an extent with Sunak, because he bowled to him at the Oval last year when the government were investing 35 million quid in a range of different parts of the game to grow it, which was a good thing. Some of that money came to the Lord's Taverners, of course.
I'm surprised he took it, Anderson. I'm surprised he accepted. He seems like a no-nonsense kind of... He seems like he wouldn't be up for that bullshit. It's just so craven. Like, you're being used. You're being used as a little mascot by a political figure. You're like one of those little bobblehead toys they put on the dashboard of their car. They get to go, oh, look, I did that one. That was mine. You know, it's
don't think many people knock back knighthoods. I think people knock back different types of honours like OBEs and so on. You hear of that periodically, but knighthoods I think they've just got an extra bit of cachet. I'm not sure. It's not my area of expertise.
They shouldn't, though. They shouldn't have cachet because they're used. Because some of the absolute dead shits who've got knighthoods, especially over the last 10 or 20 years, you wouldn't want to be associated with them. Imagine somebody's like, you're going to be linked for life with this intake. Come off it. No thanks.
Who knows? Maybe one day Harry Brook will end up being knighted for his services to cricket. He's the new England white ball captain. We didn't announce it. We talked about that last week. He did a big all-in. Wasn't given to us as a story. You know, you guys can announce in the final week that Harry Brook is the captain. If Keezy wants to go down that path, we're all ears, but it didn't quite happen that way. But no,
a mouthpiece for the organisation.
I like Harry Brook. I think he's a guy with some real substance. I know it doesn't mean a lot for him to say I won't play franchise cricket in the short term as captain, but like that risks pissing off a lot of very influential people. That's not nothing. There's something kind of honourable about saying it out loud as well. And yeah, he's 26 and it's short term. I'm sure he'll play plenty of IPL, but there's something about Brook that when he says that he is totally and thoroughly committed to English cricket, I believe it. And even the way he speaks about the Ashes being more important than his new white ball gig, like I love that too. The easy thing for him would be to say, oh, well, all cricket's important, and give some answer.
Every match you play for England.
Yeah.
You've got the pride, you've got the 3 lions on your chest.
He's just being very honest. So another thing worth listening to is the Rob Key interview with Athers and Nasser last week on the Sky podcast feed. Like, Key takes a lot of criticism, but he always kind of fronts up and does the media rounds and says what he thinks and provides detailed answers. It's coming up 3 years since he was appointed. I might see if he might come on with us, actually, because the idea of like we're reaching this point of the England cricket McCullum-Stokes Key cycle that is where it'll be defined legacy-wise, the England-India home test series and then the trip to Australia. So a lot riding on what happens in English cricket in the short term, and increasingly Harry Brook's going to have a big say on that as captain of the white ball teams. Yeah, not it doesn't relate to Test cricket,
Yeah.
but he'll be part of that leadership crew.
I think that's the thing, and they're all planning, best case, to go through to 2027 and to try to do the return Ashes when Australia go to England. But if they get annihilated in Australia this summer, none of them will be there. Like they won't have the opportunity to do that, I wouldn't think, if they get trounced as is habitual. So they've got to be able to turn that around. This is what will allow them the opportunity to go to 2027 if they can have a decent showing in Australia.
Yeah, that's exactly right. When you lose a Test series in Australia badly, you get punished as a coaching, captain, administrative groups. We have enough time before our second break to at least do Division 1 of the County Championship, which was a very busy week. Now, I'm going to start with Warwickshire and their one-wicket victory at Durham, which was a thrilling victory. So away from home, which makes it even better. And noting that Durham made 387 in the first innings. So Ben McKinney, 153 of those opening the batting. Watch out. He'll be. He's the guy who's being spoken of in hushed tones at the moment. We talked about him briefly on that with Daniel and Toby a couple of days ago, that he's the coming man. He's been through the 19s and the Lions in Australia recently, where he enjoyed some success. We've spoken about him on the Final Word before. So Ben McKinney, an early season marker there with 153. Then Warwickshire replied with 325. So they're behind by 62 runs on the first innings. Durham then set the game up, 276 for 8 declared. They're right on top and set Warwickshire 339 with more than a day to bowl them out and reduce them to 90 for 5. So, 95
game
times
over.
out of 100, maybe 99 times out of 100 with that long to run a couple of sessions, you're winning that game. But what they didn't factor in was Ed Barnard, who's just re-signed with Warwickshire, who, by all reports, put on an absolute blinder, mowing down a quick 100. He dragged them up to 285 for 7 by the time he was dismissed, enjoying a partnership with Kai Smith, the wicketkeeper, who made a 50 in both innings. Then the all-rounder, Michael Booth, takes over, and he's batting with our mate, Ethan Bamber, who was guest on the Final Word late last year. Terrific guest at that. Ethan made 21 in the first innings, so he's seen them okay. But I've watched Ethan bat quite a bit when I used to do Middlesex. He's a get in behind it kind of guy. He's a night watchman kind of guy. His
Okay.
Numbers bear that out. He averages, his strike rate is 38 in first class cricket.
He is not, ironically, a deer in the headlights.
No, he's not.
Despite being Bambi.
That's right. He's solid at best. Competent, but solid. But then they start mowing it down. So they've got 45 runs to get 8 wickets down, and they start really going for it. Booth falls, though, with the score on 324. So 15 to get
15 to go.
as number 11 walks out, Vishwa Fernando, the Sri Lankan international. And I'm thinking tight.
But he was there during that innings with Kusal Pereira.
He was. That's a great. I forgot that. He was indeed, wasn't he? So he knows what it's like to be out there when it's 9 down.
I think he was batting 10. Was it Rachita?
I think he was
11.
Yeah, either way, he played a role.
He was definitely there. And he played a role.
It was his test debut, wasn't it? It was Vishwa's test debut when he had that partnership with Kusal Pereira back in 2019. Anyway, so these guys have got 15 to get. And to be fair to Vishwa, he absorbed 17 balls of pressure to add 5 runs. And then with 1 run to go, Ben Rain, who's made an 80 and taken a bunch of wickets with Potts to get the collapse going, Ethan hits him straight back over his head for 6 to win the game by 1 wicket, which is so unusual for Bamber to do. He finishes with 30 not out. Good on him for it. So having taken a couple of wickets in both innings, more than 50 runs, the 30-odd coming in at number 9. So our guy there is the match winner. And it takes Warwickshire, I know it's only 2 rounds in, but to equal top spot on 35 points, having just survived the drop zone last year. So a great match-winning performance there from a guy who has moved clubs in the winter.
Unbelievable. I enjoyed listening to that as though I were watching the game. I was like barracking for the description to find out what happened at the end. Fun.
Up top with Warwickshire, the promoted Sussex. This is the interesting thing. So Sussex were nowhere a couple of years ago. Youngest listed.
I remember,
comp, yeah. Playing in Division 2 and kind of like doing as you might in footy, playing the kids, getting games into the kids. Well, they've smashed Somerset by 260 runs down at Hove, which is a major result because Somerset were third last year and for a moment had a chance of overtaking Surrey at the pointy end of the season. So Sussex made 294, no scores above 50, which had Andrew Sampson purring in the seat next to me at Surrey. Love stuff like that. Then Somerset knocked over for 201. Banton, after making 371 the previous week, made a duck. James Rue got to 80, and people were getting quite excited because he's on the same number of first-class hundreds as a teenager as Dennis Compton got. So one more first-class 100 before he turns 20, and he overtakes Compton. But he didn't quite get there.
How long's he got?
Like months. We're not far away.
Okay,
so,
he's got the whole season.
Yeah, possibly.
Basically.
Yeah. But anyway, right. So he got to 80-odd, which kept them in it, I suppose, given they'd lost early wickets. The left-armer, Sean Hunt, took a maiden fifer for Sussex with the new ball. Then they went big in their second dig, 501 for 7. Tom Haynes, as ever, he's very much Generation Next. Been the standard bearer down at Hove for a couple of years, got 141. Good timing for him as a 26-year-old going into Division 1 as an opener, so he'll get more of that shot window now that he's reaching the best part of his career. And, of course, then John Simpson. How's this? John Simpson rattles off another century, back-to-back hundreds. Since moving to Sussex at the start of last season, 16 matches, over 1,500 runs at 87, with 7 centuries and 4 other scores above 50. So if only the world was fair, John Simpson would still be a puncher's chance of keeping for England. But, I mean, I guess Johnny Bairstow's more likely because, you know, Johnny in it.
Smash a 6.
Yeah. And,
how many 6s you hit, Simpson? Sixes.
And Somerset was set nearly 600, and they were bowled out for 334, which is not for nothing. A Banton duck, so double failure after the nearly quadruple 100. Runs for Abel, runs for Gregory. So not a complete misadventure, getting something going in the 4th innings, but still soundly beaten by Sussex, who...
James Rue's birthday is July 20th or something, 21st.
He'll get another
so
one.
he's got the first chunk.
Yeah.
He's got to get a ton in the first
Yeah.
first chunk of the season, surely.
So Sussex with more wickets to Hunt and Seals in the 4th innings. Jaden Seals, who's a gun.
It's an unfortunate combination of names. Put those together. Like the old baby seal walks into a bar. What'll you have? Anything but a Canadian club on the rocks. That's
a nice handball to Mark Church if he's listening. He'll be commentating on Surrey's visit to Sussex, which feels like a bit of a, early season test. Are Sussex the real deal? Up from Divi 2, playing the 3-time champs at home over Easter weekend. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Speaking of Surrey...
is Prince Harry, a fan? He's the Duke, local area, or what is he still? I don't know if he resigned or not. Yeah, but, is he following?
He's a cricket guy, isn't he, I think, Harry? I'm pretty sure someone told me that he follows it pretty closely. So he might be. Yeah. You'd like to think he's the Duke of it, that he would have an allegiance
pay attention.
To Sussex from Canada, where he's living now, America, something like that. I don't know.
I think they're in LA.
Don't really pay attention to these matters as we
said. They're in LA.
Speaking of Surrey, great fight back to get on top of Hants entirely, but they couldn't finish the deal there. So a funny note from our patron, Matt Gaynor, saying that he was at Lord's last Friday listening to our Keaton Jennings interview when Jennings walked out. Then he was at Chelmsford on the Monday when you were doing an answer on Graham Gooch when he was sitting in the Graham Gooch end. And then he was listening to the Kemar Roach interview as we started play at the Oval on Friday, but unfortunately Surrey are batting, so we couldn't complete the trifecta of 3 final word moments at 3 county grounds in the space of a couple of weeks. So Surrey didn't get to bat first, or didn't get to bowl first, rather, which is usually is what they do, always what they do when they do that at home. But 253, it was sketchy, but then Dom Sibley, magnificent, carried his bat for 100, and more on Sibley in a second. More on Sibley in a second. So he carried his bat for an even 100 not out. Hampshire were going pretty nicely before they lost 5 for 34 on morning 2. So they were all out for 219. Then Surrey in the second innings, 342 for 9 declared. Dom Sibley, twin tons, 100 not out, then 105. As it kind of joked with Daniel.
How long they take?
Exactly as long as they needed to. The second innings run was quicker than the first one. The first innings 100 was with batters falling around him, and he managed to hit a slog sweep onto that's nearly at the gas holder, out of the ground. He brought up one of the milestones, I think, with an elevated 6 over the cordon. So he's got more tricks than he had before. He'd be a terrific PR pick for England, and by that I mean...
How funny would it be if they end the McCullum era picking Sibley again?
It's kind of why I mean more like to go with him while he's red hot, and they won't dump Crawley, who made a 50 this week. That's enough to get him the whole summer, presumably.
That's another year.
Sibley, How old do you think Dom Sibley is, Jeff?
Spiritually, like 85.
Yeah, but he played for England a long time ago. How old? You take a guess how old he is.
31.
Yeah, 29. Yeah, I just sort of feel
29.
like people forget that Sibley was picked young. You're allowed to improve.
Yeah.
You're permitted to get better as a cricketer, and he has.
Okay.
Surrey 342 for 9 declared is a little bit deceptive because they looked like they were going to bash the shit out of them and declare miles ahead. But it rained a bit and it was all a bit ugly, but it did provide Sonny Baker a chance to impress. Now, Sonny Baker is this 22-year-old who bowls like the wind and can go all day. He picked up a fifer, including a couple of beautiful in-swinging Yorkers from around the wicket to right-handers. So got a high ceiling when it comes to the sorts of skills that he's got at a young age. And yeah, just one to watch. I jokingly have declared that he'll make the Ashes squad at the end of the year. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. Hampshire were 35 for 3 overnight, chasing 377, but they dug in. They really dug in on that final day. There was some really sad news from Surrey on morning 4 that Alex Stewart's wife, Lynn, passed away overnight after living with cancer for 12 years. So that was a real downer when we all got to the Oval and learnt that horrible news. And then Hampshire, from a cricketing perspective, were able to bat all day. Nick Gubbins made 117, his 10th century since leaving Middlesex, and had support from Toby Albert. So they didn't really have a chance of winning. They needed to go 8s when the bad light kicked in. So they split the points there at the Oval, but it does mean that Surrey haven't won a game. 2 straight draws.
Yeah. Yeah. And it means that leaving Middlesex seems to be a great idea. It's working for Gubbins. It's working for Simpson. It's working for Bamber. Yep. Everybody's having a good time.
Strong theme.
Leave Middlesex. That's the lesson.
Strong theme of the first 3 games. Knott's had a strong draw against Essex. Keeps them also right at the top of the ladder after 2 rounds. 347. Kyle Verreynne, what a signing he is. 128 not out. Sam Cook for Essex, 4 for 44. Does Sam Cook take 4 for 44 every single week for Essex, Jeff? That's my question to you. It feels like he does.
Yeah.
He did it with the Kookaburra ball in Australia recently as well, playing in that England Lions group. So I like to think he's still under consideration. Rob Keane name dropped him in that aforementioned interview. Essex got 20 runs ahead with 367. Jordan Cox, 82. Couldn't rule him out, given he was in the England squads over the winter. Matt Critchley, another 50. Gotta love him at this time of year. And then for Knott's, Fergus O'Neill, another 3 for the big Ferg Burger down at the Lobster Cave in Beaumaris, 3 wickets. That's what I'm going to call him forever now, the Ferg Burger.
Is he the Australian Sam Cook?
could well be. They're very similar bowlers. Very similar bowlers.
That's what I'm saying.
Lobster Cave King. And Knott's second time around got 385. Essex got 366. They were set 366, but where they got the better of them, 106 for 1. So a draw there at Trent Bridge. But I like Knott's. I'm long on Knott's this year. So we'll see how they go. And to finish, just to round out Division 1, only the biggest victory margin ever in county history by runs. Talk about burying the lead. Yeah, Yorkshire have beaten...
Talk about burying the opposition.
Yorkshire have beaten Worcestershire by 500, and I didn't write it down, I think it's 504 runs, which is quite the thing. So they made 456 with Milan and Lythe getting 50s. Worcester then knocked over for 162. Ben Coate, as ever, taking 4 wickets for Yorkshire, most wickets in England last year for the veteran seamer. Yorkshire, 315 for 4 declared. Simply Dom Best, night watchman, gets 100, bless him. They set them 610 for victory, and they rolled them for 105. Given there have been more than 23,000 county championship games played, that's a proper record. That's not a nothing pretend thing to do, to win by the highest margin by runs ever in championship history.
And in Andrew Sampson land, to win by the biggest margin ever, and no one made 100 in the first innings.
Yeah.
And your only 100 came from the night watchman.
Good point. Yeah, David Milan
That's pretty wild.
With 98. So lots for Samo there. So Yorkshire starting well in Division 1, their first win there with the aforementioned Warwickshire, Notts and Sussex up the top, and Worcestershire and Durham down the bottom this week. Sussex, Surrey that I mentioned before. That's probably match of the round. Durham are hosting Yorkshire. Durham need a win, I reckon, early on. They're down the bottom of the table. They've lost at home this week. Essex, Worcestershire. Essex will need to win handsomely there and have a big full pointer against the team that's likely to go down. Hampshire hosting Somerset, 2 teams who are always going to be close to Surrey in terms of what they put out on the park, but need to show it with their results. And Warwickshire, top of the table clash against Notts at Edgbaston, and that will be the Easter weekend.
There we go. Before the break, a reminder that the NordVPN deal is still up. You get big discounts. If you sign up for the longer deal, you get more free months there. It's like a few bucks a month. It's actually ridiculously cheap. If you don't have a VPN, if you don't know what a VPN is, it's the thing that when you try to watch something and then the internet's like, you can't watch this because you're in the wrong country. This user has not enabled this content for your region. That kind of bullshit. You're trying to watch a stream of the county championship. I know you can watch those from anywhere, but maybe some countries you can't. Maybe they're like, we've banned Warwickshire because we don't like Warwickshire. You're not allowed to watch them in Bolivia. Maybe President Morales has a grudge against Warwickshire for some reason. You can tell the internet that you're somewhere else. That's what a VPN does. It's a virtual private network, and it says, oh, well, actually, this person's in Warwickshire. And then you can watch it. You can watch highlights that you can't access elsewhere. You can log into services that don't let you do that in certain countries, and that is very relevant for people who like to watch a lot of sport around the world, which a lot of people listening to this show do. So NordVPN's the quickest. They've got the most servers. They've got hundreds of them. They've got hundreds of countries. They've got thousands of servers in hundreds of countries. They're quick. They will connect you to what you want to be connected to. And if you use the link at nordvpn.com/TFW, that's our code, which means you get a discount as well.
They've got binders full of service. Hey, quick story. I'm going to change the details so not to hurt the person's career. Someone I know was covering a major sporting event in the last couple of days, and they couldn't get into the ground because their accreditation was stuffed up by their employer, right? And what did they do? They had to log on to their NordVPN to watch the aforementioned game and then write a match report off the basis of the TV stream that they were watching because they couldn't get into the ground. Very you and me energy, that. But yes, so not getting access to the event you're covering in another part of the world and then needing to tap into your UK accounts via your NordVPN. I'm not saying that'll be you, but it's an emblem of how NordVPN can get you out of trouble and make sure that you can see what you need to see. NordVPN/TFW, back in a sec. Quite a bit more to get through. And then, of course, Ben Jones with our IPL wrap, and he's promising quite a bit this week.